Hello again. This is video number 2 of the introductory series. I'm having to keep them to under 15 minutes long because of YouTube regulations and all the rest of it. So it just makes it more convenient. Besides which, it gives you a break from listening to my somewhat monotone voice and looking at my Fizzog. And if you're looking at my Fizzog, you need a break. Right. We've talked about washing and rinsing the figures when they arrive. We've talked about the basic tools. Now, one thing we didn't mention about files is why you actually need them. You need them because on any moulded figure, you will, to a greater or lesser extent, get what's called mould lines. Now, a mould line is if you imagine two halves of a mould come together, the material, plastic or metal, is then injected into the mould, and where those two or more parts come together, there will be a slight ridge. This can increase with time, by the way, through wear. But where they come together here, 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 that ridge that forms on the figure is called a mould line. And the easiest way for most figures is either a file, and when you've got a selection of files, it's much better. A curved one, a round one, flat, what have you, because then you can get in to little bits of the figure that you'll find just one. If you've only got one file, you can't get into quite easily, and you just file off. Now, if, little tip, you're not as mad as me, so you'll not have several hundred of the same figure, but if you've got 5 or 10 of the same figure, then it's best to work on them together, because when you've done one, the second one you'll do a little bit quicker, because you know basically whereabouts mould lines are. When you've done 2, the third one is even quicker, and by the time you come to number 4, you know exactly whereabouts those mould lines, if they exist, are going to be, and you can get them done very quickly, and that's going to save you an awful lot of time. Rather than doing one figure and then a different figure and then another figure and then coming back to do a duplicate of the first or whatever. Do them in batches. And when you've removed the mould line, it will immeasurably improve the appearance of the painting that you put on, because if you don't, invariably the paint will enhance the appearance of the mould line, which is one thing you do not want. Some sculptors will actually have the mould lines knowing that they go down a crease of a trouser or a sleeve, so that even if they're there, they don't look too bad. But you'll get them on heads, on feet, on anything really. But try and do them in batches if you can. Now, the other thing that we didn't talk about, we talked about tools but not about anything else, is flash. Now, flash generally occurs when, as I said, you've got 2 halves of a mould or more parts that come together, and the material is injected in. Well, if there is any muck in between those 2 halves of the mould, even though they're compressed tightly together, there will be a gap. And when the material is injected in, it goes into gaps, and it will find that gap, and you can get thin or thick, depending on the manufacturer generally, what's called flash. They're not mould lines, they're actual faults where the moulds either no longer fit snugly together, or where there was some dirt in between. And with that, that's where good old clippers come in, file and knife, craft knives, and you snip away, cut away as carefully as you possibly can. If the flash is too great, make sure you complain to the manufacturer. I mean, on older moulds and that, there's more chance of getting flash, but it shouldn't be excessive. And on new moulds, you know, just a little bit because a bit of dust has got in between them. That's acceptable. After all, manufacturers are human, but they should make sure the moulds are clean when they're making the figures. So now, brushes. You'd think that they're the most important item. That and paints for a painter. Yes and no. Most important item always is the kettle. Okay. I'm an epileptic, so I'm on medication. So therefore I can't drink alcohol and that. But I can drink cups of tea. So, okay. Right now then. Brushes. A pet hate of mine are people who throw away brushes because they don't look good. I've got 3 brushes here. Okay. Not in the best of states. Not too worn, but they're not brilliant. And in all honesty, I wouldn't try doing final coats on any figure with them. But don't throw brushes away. They can be used in ways such as spreading PVA glue around the base of a figure, moving scatter on the base. They can be used for putting on primer. They can be used for putting on varnish, or taking varnish off. If varnish or stain is getting too deep, say in the nook of an arm, then you can just put the brush in and take it out. But I see painters, and especially new painters, who think, oh no, I can't use that brush, and bin them. And then they come up and need a brush to do one task I've just said. And guess what? They have to use a new brush. Now, you can tell that my father was Scottish and my mother was Jewish, can't you? What a waste. So don't throw them. I use brushes size 10-0 up to 10. I think that's just a fluke, by the way, that I've got a brush size 10. 10-0s are my new. And I doubt whether many of you will need them. You may want to, when you've got a figure that's just come just right, you may want to put it aside and think, I want to do something with that, and then you'll get another figure, perhaps a week later, a month later, and you can make up a little diorama with them, and yeah. So, but brushes are something that you should look after. 2 things, just while we're on about brushes, and it's the care of brushes more than anything else. Now, I've seen, and these are clean, believe it or not, I've seen painters that go to moisten them, to put the hairs together before they do the paint. The only problem is you get into a habit. Okay. And it's not a good habit, because that brush has been everywhere. Alright, so try not to do that. It is sensible to actually moisten the hairs of your brush before you start painting with it. I don't mean soak it, I mean moisten it. Just a little bit of water and just dab it down to get the excess off. It just brings the hairs together. Secondly, when you've finished with your brushes, at the end of your session, it's also worthwhile, because brushes can work out expensive when you take, buying lots of them, or even a few if you, don't waste your money again. Get some washing up liquid, and after washing them, not with washing up liquid, but after you've rinsed them and that and dried them, just a little bit of washing up liquid, little squirt on your fingers and just rub them in the hair like that. You're just coating the hair ever so slightly. Alright? Then next time you come to use them, put them in water, take them out and just rinse them a couple of times and you've got rid of the washing up liquid. But what the washing up liquid has done is actually like a conditioner for the hair, says he. Now, I can remember actually using conditioner. My wife made me use it. Never used it before I met my wife, but she made me use it. Anyway, that's looking after your brushes, okay? Now, something that brought up a bit of comment on the bakercompany.co.uk/forum site when I mentioned it is pens. Now, pens are a painter's real boon these days. They really are. As you'd make a collection of paints, make a collection of pens as well. And here I've got one which I will highly recommend, and I mean highly recommend, for the Winter War series, and it is a pen by Posca. That is Posca at posca.com, by the way, and the reference is PC.1MR. It's a white paint pen, and the brilliance of it is, hang on, let's just get this out, it's 0.7 millimeters wide. That's the brush on it. It is brilliant, and I'll be showing you how to use them to highlight with. Really, to everything, do that. If you're doing Winter War and you're doing the Finns or the Russians, the Soviets, you want a Posca pen, and as I say, PC.1MR. I will be doing notes on the forum to accompany these videos, and I'll reference everything on there, so no need, they're available online. That's where I got mine from. Right, so that's pens. Where are we? Just coming up to 13 minutes. So, right, I want to talk in the next short video about workspace, storage and paints, and that's most probably the one thing that people might disagree about. Oh, by the way, just before we finish, on brushes, there's arguments whether natural sable brushes are better than synthetic brushes, one make over another make. I mean, in all honesty, people say Kolinsky brushes, and I actually like Kolinsky brushes. But when it comes to good quality man-made brushes and sable brushes, I don't think there's much difference. It's a personal preference. Try them. Don't spend your mortgage money buying them and that, but you'll get used to them. But there's no, we're not going out buying children's plastic strand brushes, that come in a £1 or $1 set. No, but don't spend your mortgage on them, not yet anyway. So right, I will see you in the third and final introductory video very soon. Bye now.